discussion and introducing our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priya. Hi, everyone. Are you guys having a good day? Yeah, amazing. Love it. So, as you know, my name is Tam. A little bit about who I am, why the hell am I talking to you guys? Why am I here? So, I am from Coventry, like many of you. I was born in Afghanistan, so that whole thing of like being sent to Coventry and like what we're known for is literally me and my identity. So that's a lot of the work that I explore in my writing. So I do spoken word, I do work with a lot of young people, and I really care about allowing for opportunities for young people to go into whatever career they desire. So that's why I'm here and why I care about this so much. So enough about me. We're here to hear from these panelists, these amazing panelists that we've got with us. So this panel's really about, how these people have made a career in this sector through projects we might see as these like side hustles or side projects, and they're now fully fledged and they're making money from it, I think. Yep, they are. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. And the panelists we have are John Bernard, Roze Navab, Kamal Hakim, and David Boanuh. So we'll start firstly with John and Roze that are here with us in person in Coventry. So to start off with John. So John is a spoken word artist, and he's a rapper. He's based here in Coventry, and his work really commentates on social issues, youth empowerment, faith, and purpose. He's the founder of BACE, Be a Change Everywhere. This is an organisation that helps young people find a medium through poetry and spoken word. John's also got many accolades as well. So he's been commissioned for numerous different organisations, including Apples and Snakes and the BBC, so with his poem Loaded Handgun, which was written for Black History Month. He was also the first local artist to receive £700 from the Herbert Art Gallery and Museum for a digital micro-commission responding to their 13 Ways of Looking exhibition. He was also recently selected as a finalist on One Extra, an Asian Network's BBC World's first programme. So over to John. I'd love to really hear about your journey into making your creative career.
Yeah, thank you for having me firstly. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Where do I start? Well, my journey's been quite different. So I've always been into the creative art forms, specifically songwriting and poetry. And I was having a great conversation with Offa there at the break, and I was just talking to him about how I started. So my starting point was really just immersing myself in writing since probably the age of 5. And I remember, my mum being one of those mums who, as long as you're doing well in school, I don't mind what you do after school sort of thing. And I used to write in my room quite a bit, and then I'd come downstairs, and then she'd be sitting, having a cup of tea, and then I'll just perform for her. It could be a spoken word, it could be a story I just written, it could be a song. And but unfortunately, at the age of 11, I lost my mum. And then that's when things took a whole different turn for me. And the very thing that I kind of did for fun and enjoyment became therapy. So the whole writing process now for me was just putting things that were going through my mind onto paper, just so I could be sane in that sense. And by the time I was like 15, 16, it took a whole different turn, and I was really more involved in writing, and had some great mentors around me, and who pushed me and who said to me, you know what, you've got this gift, utilize it, push yourself. And I did just that, and I was still 1 foot in the streets, 1 foot in the studio and working and all that sort of stuff. And my school teacher, my tutor, she was a music teacher, and she created a studio in the school for us. And one of the incentive was, like, if I had obviously paid attention in my other classes, I could use the studio, and ended up paying attention in class. And so by the time I was 17, I was offered a deal by Sony, and things were going great. But at the same time, it was the 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing that kind of still was hindering my progress. Then it came to the point where I found my faith, and that's when a light bulb moment really came to me, and I really understood the gift behind what I had, And for me, that's when I started pursuing it differently. So when I went to university, I started touring around different universities. I went to Aston in Birmingham, started touring around. open mics, everything that I could just get my hands on, really developing my craft to that level and taking every risk. And for me, it's always been, again, just understanding that I have this ability and where do I want to take this ability. And I think that's the first and foremost thing that we all have to acknowledge, that you're good at something, and what is it, that thing that you're good at? And once you figure that thing out, do the best that you can do to developing that thing to a different degree. So when people hear you or people see you do that thing, they're like, okay, yeah, you've really had some practice rounds. And yeah, so I ended up doing some amazing things. Ended up working with BBC, ended up working with Virgin London Marathon, different campaigns, Coventry City of Culture, and all these amazing things. But the reality is, it's like, without hard work, dedication, favor, and also just, I won't call it luck. I'll call it just saying yes to everything and turning up. Literally, that's what it is. I mean, we did I had a wonderful, wonderful honor and opportunity to be part of BBC Contain Strong Language, and this is incredible. I grew up in Stoke Aldermore, which is not far from here. Anyone here from Cov? Yeah. Anyone know what Stoke Aldermore is? Yeah. What's the area like? It's not great. It's not great. This is it. So I grew up in Stoke Aldermore. The great thing about the Aldermore is community is amazing. You know what I mean? But it's not the best of areas, right? And I grew up in the Aldermore, and there's this whole notion sometimes of nothing good comes out from an area like the Aldermore. But it was great for me to have some of my friends over and young people that I mentor now to BBC Contain Strong Language, you know, to this prestigious thing. You know, and it's like Corey said earlier on, like sometimes it's more, you look at these things and you're like, wow, like, is it possible? But then it's just about, yes, it is possible. Just turn up when you need to turn up, and it all culminates to these moments, these really special moments. So that moment in itself, I remember Jonathan Davison, the guy that heads up Writing West Midlands, said something like, you know, introduced me as one of the hardest working poets, you know, at the festival. That's because I said yes to everything. And people were like, how are you saying yes to everything? Because I was like, yo, I'll figure it out. But right now it's a yes, you know. And it's these things. Sometimes you don't need to know where the journey's taking you, but it's all understanding that, you know what, this is where I want to get to. However, it might mean like today, for example, there was a tree on the road, and that means I had to detour, right? But it's just for finding different ways to get to your destination. And that way might lead to so many other hurdles or whatever it is, but you will get to your destination one way or another. So for me, it's just those things. And I think Priya said something great about the hobby thing. You know, sometimes we look at our creative forms as just hobbies, not really careers. And that's a hindrance in itself. That's a big hindrance. Because no one says, okay, I want to become a doctor, but it's just a hobby, not a career. You know what I mean? Like, it's that. You tell one of your friends that I want to become like Demi, for example. Demi's an amazing creative mind. You know, he might have friends where he might say, you know what, I'm coming up with this new brand called Maxime and I'm doing all this stuff. And then a friend might say, you're doing too much, Demi. Just stick to what you know. You know, engineering, get your degree, you know, stick to that. But then Demi's thinking higher and bigger. You know, it is a career path, you know, and sometimes these things, these notions can hinder us, but it's about us seeing the bigger picture. And sometimes only you can see the bigger picture, you know. Our lives are not cinemas, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's not everyone that can see the culmination of your hard work, your strength, your preparation. No one can see that, but it's up to you to see the final product before anyone does. And then believe you me, when people start seeing the product, they'll be like, oh, I believed in you from the outset. I knew you were going to do that. And that's the reality of life, so yeah.
Thank you so much. I heard a lot of things in there. A lot about, obviously, self-belief, about the journey, how it's never-ending, actually, and how you've got different goals. But also about the fact that we don't really see creative careers as a career that we can do and set out to do. It's almost perhaps the periphery. And even the title of this, it's like, well, how can you take what you're doing on the side and make it a main? But actually, on the outset, to have faith and to have dialogue around how important creative careers are is really key. So thank you so much, John, for that. Thank you. And we'll come back and I'll touch upon a few of those things in the Q&A portion. So next we have with us Roze Navab. So Roze is the managing director of the Twin Studios project. This is an organisation that works to connect Coventry and its 26 twin cities through music, media and arts. So Roze actually set up her organisation in her first year of university while she was at Coventry, which is amazing. And she's gone to rekindle so many dormant and links with these twin cities. She works to utilise them for younger generations to take advantage of. Like, it's a global platform, and we should really have those links. And she does this work. She has projects taking over all over the world, including Russia and Jamaica. And Roze really advocates for the internationalism in creative industries. So over to you, Roze.
Brilliant, thanks so much. Hi, thank you for that introduction. So a bit about how Twin Studios came about and why I do what I do. So I, unlike John, I didn't know I was into creativity. I am an Asian woman. I always fit into this mold of one day I will be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and I spent the first 15 years of my life just jumping back and forth between the three options that I was presented, thinking, do I want to be an industrial engineer? Do I want to be a dermatologist? Do I want to be a family lawyer? What do I want to do? And being a young woman of a brown background, an Asian background, I didn't really find my place in my area in Coventry because it was predominantly white, and I felt like I was a bit of an outsider, sadly. Even though I've been here since I was 2, I know it's hard to believe, but it can be. So when I was 15, I stumbled across community radio, and community radio does not get given the platform that it deserves. Though it's small, though it doesn't have much listeners, community radio is a fantastic way of starting out. And I spent 3 years really realizing that media is where I want to be. So through that, I went into doing stuff like television, newspaper, and like John, I said yes to anything. In my mind, I was young, I'm a teenager, I don't have responsibilities. I will take anything I can if I can take it. So I dabbled around in media, and I was meant to go to Manchester to study English and creative writing, but during the summer between sixth form and university, I was at the council house in Coventry, like, all great 18-year-olds do, just take a little visit to the council house. But I discovered that Coventry has a rich history with twinning. And when you think twinning is, what comes to mind is quite older people going and sightseeing various cities, maybe shaking hands with the mayor. But it on paper sounds a bit lame. It's not as exciting as it could be. But in my eyes, this was a global platform for Coventry and its creators. We have 26 cities all over the world, covering most continents. You can turn around and say, I want to do a creative project with someone in Jinan, China. John can say 6 of the young people he mentors, he wants to do a poetry exchange with, Parks, Australia. And doing that, that's 6 young people that have opened their eyes and realised that the world is a lot closer than they think it is. So I boldly and against my parents' wishes decided to stay in Coventry and develop Twin Studios project. So I moved my option on results day to media production at Coventry, which is brilliant because I got to also study what I love as well. And I started my organisation. It's a social enterprise. It's a community interest company. And since then, gone on to rekindle a lot of the 26 links because we have so many. The council couldn't keep a relationship with all of them. So it was my job to reach out to these cities and kind of say, hey, we are here. We have a network. We have creatives. We have talent. Come utilise this. Come collaborate with us. So that is how Twin Studios project started. Though I do a lot of creativity myself in terms of photography, videography, radio, I found that my passion massively lies with facilitating things for you guys as the collective, as the creative network. I love being able to give that opportunity that I never had, the platform that I never had. Because you could be sat here in little old Coventry, sat within the ring road, thinking to yourself, the world is so far away. How am I supposed to reach out to these billions of people living across the world? How am I supposed to really take advantage of this platform? But if you think about these 26 twin cities that have millions and millions of populations collectively, that is like we keep saying, that global platform that you deserve. So that is what I do. Since then, I also work as a producer for a lot of art projects, a lot of music projects, few of them being through my own organisation. And though I've set up 2.5 years ago, I haven't achieved the 426 in terms of rekindling, but my team has recently grown by 3 people, and we predict by May we would have all 26. So you could at any point turn to us and ask to work with that twin, and we would have someone to put you in touch with. So that is what I do.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rose. Like, I honestly had no idea about the kind of depth of connections as well that you can make, and also your journey is so interesting, and I'm so surprised that we've not crossed paths before as well, being from Coventry and like just rocking up at the council house like when we're younger, which was a very fond memory for me. So that's really, really interesting. And I think that one thing that's really stuck out to me is what you do in your work. And again, similar to you, John, as well, and what we'll hear is like, it's in a way, it's your creativity becomes selfless. It's really about how you, as a vehicle, can allow other people to harness their own work, their own creativity. So I think that's really, really powerful. And thank you for doing what you do as well. So now we're actually going to go virtually. So we're joined by 2 amazing creatives that are on, like a different side of the globe to us. And we're starting first with Kamal Hakim. So Kamal, who you can see there on screen, and we can see him here. Hello, Kamal. Yeah, we're just going to pin him. Brilliant. So just to introduce Kamal before he starts, he's from Beirut, Lebanon. He did a political science degree, so he's a political science graduate as well, and he's a political cartoonist. And I think he's going to show a little bit of his work, so we'll get some idea of what he does, but please do check him out on his Instagram and his socials as well as everyone else, obviously, here. And as well as his work doing political cartoons, he also teaches. So I know that he's taught architecture students, he's worked with individual publications, he's worked with large organizations. So, he's not only worked on illustrations, but also graphic novels. So again, a whole list of accolades. And I'm actually going to pass over to Kamal to talk a little bit more about his work and his journey.
Well, thank you, Tam, for this amazing introduction. After that, basically, yes, like Tam said, I am from Beirut, and I have this eclectic background where I studied political sciences, got a degree in that, and then I shifted towards cartoons. And like John said, when you do something well, just pursue it. And basically I realized that I wasn't necessarily made for the academics and for publishing reports and reviews. I was made for cartoons. So basically that's going to pinpoint to what it is all about. Now, I grew up during the civil war in Beirut, and after the war, I really wanted to understand why was my country torn apart like that? And why is the Middle East so complicated? And we're used to, after 9/11, seeing the Middle East as being this really conflictual, complex region that is unresolvable. And, you have so many different questions that are at stake. And so I wanted to address the complexity. I'm not afraid of this complexity, and I'm trying through my comics to address this aspect. So I worked on my first comic, which was called Le Temps des Grenades in French. And this allowed me to gain some visibility because coming from Lebanon, Lebanon, I think, is one of the tiniest countries. So, and you don't really have a lot of visibility. So it was important for me to start somewhere. And thanks to that, I was able to go to France, have residencies there, meet other publishing houses, and from there on, the journey started in a more serious way, in a way. And I'm still in Beirut. I teach, and I think that's basically the big lines, trying to understand this complex Middle East, try to make it as addressable as possible. And voilà. Looking forward for the questions if you guys have any. I'm gonna comment a bit on the illustrations you guys are gonna see. This is from my first comic book, Le Temps des Grenades, where I tackled the issue of an investigation of my uncle Karim, who was assassinated during the Civil War, and he was a communist militant. And so we grew up, with this image of this uncle that was, this militant and all of that. And so 30 years later, I tried to understand and do this investigation of trying to understand why was he killed during the Civil War. That's for one. And here, can't really see the screen, it's a bit white. But I guess you have images of the comic strip. It's in yellow and white. Yellow because of Beirut being a very warm city during the month of August. And so I wanted to play on this tone of color. I wasn't being lazy only, because some people might accuse of me being a bit lazy by using just one color. But yellow is also profoundly, the essence of a specific month, which is the month of August, and I work on that. This is basically style. This is also a variety of styles I also like to work on. So there's the iconographic work. So I like to work on Byzantine iconography, which I will later on reinterpret in my own way. So for example, you have Karl Marx, for example, that is going to be represented in a Byzantine fashion. There's political cartoons also, and there's also the Persian influence of the Persian miniatures that I also use. So it's being part of this Middle East that is complex, very rich, and trying to tackle it in different mediums. So we have the Byzantine influence, the Persian miniature, the Turkish miniatures also. And you can check my, that's also part of my Instagram, little short stories where I depict the narrator, the character of Kamal, who's being visited at night by different characters. So in this nightmare, for example, he's being visited by Luke Skywalker, and Kamal is completely naked. And it's a bit the state of mind in which Lebanon is today. So it's a very frail and fragile country. If you've been following the news after the explosion of the 2nd of August last year and everything, Luke Skywalker comes and tries to push me, tell me, come on, the resistance is waiting for us. So that's basically the spirit. Voila.
Thank you so much for that. That was just brilliant. And just looking at your work, your artwork on the screen, and obviously I've looked at it before, but hearing you talk about it as well, and why you've chosen the things that you've done, and like just explaining kind of the process behind it and your journey, and also I guess just how raw some of these things are as well, just how vulnerable you have to be in your art too, and the things that you're talking about, it really comes through. So yeah, thank you, and I can't wait to talk a little bit more about some of these things. So thank you so much, Kamal.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go over to our final panelists, and this is David Boanuh from Ghana. And David is a poetic filmmaker from Accra, Ghana, whose work spans across the globe. He's worked with brands such as Apple, Vogue, Unilever, World Rugby, and many more. So yeah, many brands he's worked with. He's also the co-founder of Beautiful Stories Studio. This is a production company that seeks to retell the diverse stories of the African continent from the African perspective itself. And this is done through photography and film. He's done a recent collaboration with Beyonce, I know, impressive. And this is on the project Black is King. This gained global traction, and it really sparked conversations on what celebrating African identity means to people now and also to future generations. So yeah, I'm going to pass actually back over to David, who can talk a little bit about his journey into his creative career.
Thank you very much. That was a really awesome introduction. Hi, I'm David Boanuh. pretty much, I think she said everything about my career, and I don't know what to say now. But I really love that this room is full of students because I started in school, in university, which is not too long ago, just about 2 years ago. And actually, I'm Ghanaian. Um, I am in Ghana. I live in Ghana, and but my work is global, and that is what the new Africa looks like. I believe that the new Africa is a continent where people get to tell themselves, to talk about themselves to the world, to be the main representatives of who they are, and not just others speaking about us, but us also having that microphone to speak about ourselves. Just like I mentioned, my work started in university. Um, which I attended here in Ghana as well, Ashesi University, where my career really was birthed. Just a brief introduction. It started off as an assignment. I attended a liberal arts school, so we had the flexibility really to represent our assignment in any format we wanted to. And I just decided, well, let me make a video. And I made a video, and I didn't know that was the start of my career. But just like everyone says on this panel, that it really takes a lot to start off and also to move into where you are. But really, it was primarily being consumed by my passion, being consumed by what I love. That on some mid-semester breaks, you'd find me still in school just because there's really fast Wi-Fi, and I just want to sit there and watch videos and filmmaking. And that's kind of like where it started off, you know, as as you would call it, the title of this, from side hustle to main career. And so it was like that, like a hobby. It was an assignment. Then it moved on. I didn't know that, and somewhere in my second, third year of university, I'll be, traveling around the globe, working on projects, talking about films, talking about the things I work on. I've worked with Apple, I've worked with Unilever, I've worked with Chelsea. Um, the recent Black and Skin film with Beyonce. Um, something that really drew so much attention. I don't think I was ready for, especially for someone who just came out of university. Um, got media attention from BBC, um, was all over social media. And, the beautiful thing is that at this point, we've got to the space where we can own ourselves and own our crafts and own who we are, irrespective of where you are, because the world is so global now that if you are not the mouthpiece of yourself, if you are not the mouthpiece of your story, someone will pick it up for you. Because right now, everything is on the news, everything is in the media. And over time, Africa has been talked about for so long in a very different way. But it's so great to be able to be part of, the leading storytellers to say, no, this is who we are. This is who we should be told as. I can see things on the news about what Africa looks like, and I stand across my window and I look outside. And I'm like, that's not really it, So that's what my work seeks to tell, to be able to own this narrative. And yeah, and one of um, my recent projects I did that I think the video will be played soon, maybe after I just wrap this up. So let me wrap this up. It's Golden Seeds. Golden Seeds, just in the same way, stories are being told of people. We wanted these farmers to tell their stories themselves. And it's about the inequalities in the cocoa industry. These farmers have such a beautiful lifestyle and livelihood. But when you see a documentary about a cocoa farmer, it's not like this. They don't look this happy. Someone would just show up in the country with a camera, uh, just pull out a camera on this farmer in his farm in his tattered clothes, in his, work attire. That is him on the farm. That is not his everyday life. That is him at work, you know. So it's like, it's not when I'm sweaty on set with 20 crew members that people pull up cameras on me. It's not the same thing. Right now I'm comfortable in my studio. So in the same way, if you are to pass the mic to them in a space where they are comfortable, they will express themselves in a much better way. And that is so in this, I think maybe the a small excerpt of the documentary should be played, just so we have a good understanding of what I'm talking about, because it's a good summary.
you so much for that. I think we have got the clip that you've sent, a race to play. So yeah, we'll go for that now.
What we've witnessed is a story of hardship. We have innocent people roped in a system designed against them that almost looks like an unending cycle. But then what we've also witnessed is a story of resilience and positivity. In understanding this, we've come to see that at its core is a people committed to family, love, and also a people with a sense of community. What the rest of the world fails to see is that they are not only farmers, but they are people too. We hope that this documentary could potentially spark the change that the industry needs.
Thank you. I feel like we should have a round of applause. Should we have a round of applause? Yeah, I really feel like we should. Thank you. And that's for you, David. That's for all of our speakers. That was just brilliant. And David, just to reflect a little bit on some of the things that you said before we go into the Q&A portion, is I know we had a little, a pre-briefing before this, and something that you mentioned there and you've talked about was being a part-time uni student, and the whole thing about how you actually spent more time doing projects and, getting involved in things than your actual, university. And I remember feeling like that at uni as well. So I think that that's really something that's quite key, in that what perhaps the structures and institutions don't necessarily prepare you for is how much grafting that you've got to put in the periphery. You've really got to work beyond and actually follow that. Like, I loved my degree. I went to Warwick, amazing. I'm sure that everyone did. But there's something about getting involved in those projects, getting involved in the things that you care about that can produce, people like David and, the film that we've just seen. That was brilliant. So thank you to you. Thank you to everyone. So I've actually got a few questions, and I'm going to actually start first with Kamal, if that's okay. And I've got a question for you based on your art form itself. So, of course, we've got these variety of art forms depicted in the panelists and what they do. But also when we're looking at specific art forms, it is harder to make a living out of some rather than others. And then there's also ones that we don't hear about as much. For example, illustration. It's not necessarily given the same global stage as perhaps others. And there's also the element of the work you do is also difficult in the sense that it can impact your life politically and what you do. So I'd just love to hear a little bit about kind of your work as an illustrator, your work as an artist on that front, the financial aspects of it, and also some of the challenges that you faced in that political landscape and how you might have navigated them.
Okay, so it's the financial question, the financial dimension,
Yes.
and the survival aspect. Yes. Basically, you have to take everything that comes into your way. You have to accept to work commercial works, and this is fine. So I've had the luck and the opportunity of working for foreign clients, German ones, Gulf countries, and they pay, and that allows me as an illustrator to continue pursue my career and to work and do my research on my own and focus on what I really like. Now, in terms of material, in terms of research, I still like to explore different mediums. I haven't settled for one specific one. Like, of course, there is the comic industry, which is the storytelling part, which I now work really on. But there's also this curiosity, this constant curiosity to explore more mediums. So by using, for example, painting, different types of inking, this also allows me to broaden my mindset a bit and understand different cultures that are stemming from the region. That's one way of looking at it.
Okay, thank you. And just to sort of a follow up is what advice would you give to yourself looking back from that financial perspective? Like, what are the things you wish you'd done or wish you'd known, and some tips that you can give some people that might be in that position now?
It's important to impose the routine. It's important to keep working and having an open mind about what's happening, not to just be looking at the entertainment industry and just mangas. It's fine to look at mangas and what's really commercial, but it's always good to add this little added value that you can find somewhere else sometimes, and to have your own niche. Because if you're going to go into the arts, it all depends what you want to become and where you want to fit in this big puzzle. So depending on the market that you have and depending on the industry you want to choose, be it in animation, cartoons, and all that, it's important to know, like, are you more of a storyteller? Are you more of an illustrator? And I try to combine the storytelling with the illustration side. So there's the technical and there's the script writing part, which I find quite engaging and challenging, but it's what I like and it's a passion, so I work on it. Now, coming from the Middle East, it's also quite stimulating because the challenge is even bigger. You know, when you grow up after, in the world in which we live in post 9/11, where, it's all about identity politics and Arabs are, depicted as, walking ticking bombs. So you really want to change the narrative in a way and try to really tackle what complexity is. And it's part of, the anti-colonial struggle also. It's something that we shouldn't forget. There's, the socio-economical dimension, and there's also the fact that, countries are not all equal. And so when you want to put your voice out there, it's important to know what tools are available and to be smart about it.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. And I think that I really appreciate you talking about some of the difficulties in that, but also about your originality. I think, John, you said that. It's always like, what's your niche? Like, what is it that you're doing? What are you saying that's different from, other people? And I think that you've all sort of touched upon it. You've seen a gap, you've identified a gap, and you've worked within that. So it's about you and your work, but it's also about what's not being done. What can I do? Where can I fit in? Where can my story fit in? Or how can I, elevate the stories of others as well? So thank you again, Kamal, for that. My next question actually is to David. So we're talking again about funding and various funding streams, and I know you've had, work with commercial clients and so on, but when you were getting started, how did you get on that sort of journey about gaining funding for work, or and how have you continued to allow it to grow, and what's the plans for the future in terms of your funding kind of model? So if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be really great.
So in aspects of funding and when you're starting, it's always very tricky, but the truth is, when it comes to any business at all, anything at all that you do, if it's something you love so much, there's always a way. And that's primarily what I just always have in mind. And it's not so much about being focused on where do I get the money and being consumed by that. Rather be consumed by how much you love it and let that passion just keep growing. Because if you're starting off with what you have ahead of you, what you have in front of you. So what do you have access to is the first question. I had access to friends. I had access to a mobile phone. My first video was made on a mobile phone. My first real good video that I started pitching with was made with a camera I borrowed from my friend, who is my business partner now. I borrowed a camera, and so you can also create the right associations with like-minded people, creating a network for yourself, because your network is also a social currency. Money is currency, but people is also, if you look within your network, you can also create currency out of that. So to be able to get access to the things you need, irrespective of the fact that it's, you know, presented in money value, it's still currency. So I got I got a lens from a studio I started interning with, a really good lens and an average camera, and so it's not so much about the tools that I started with, but at least I got something to be able to make a professional video. And I just went out, I created a really good video. And one crazy thing I did was, during career fair in my school, everyone is going about pitching and dropping CVs. I just went about showing people my video. And that is how I just started working with some international brands. So as of then, I was just crazy about what I was doing. Probably if my lecturers had seen me holding my laptop showing them, they'll be like, why are you doing that? But it was just about the fact that I was really consumed and loved what I did so much. I just wanted a way to do more of it. So one person connected me to another, and that social currency just kept growing, connecting to people. Ended up in my first agency that I started working with. um, and then it just went on and on and on, and I started working with big brands just about 1 year or 2 years within my career, just because I was pushing so hard. So falling in those right places, just because you're pushing and not just waiting for things to happen, you make things happen. So it's not so much about the fact that you need capital to start. It's more about what are the other things that can create social currency for you, as opposed to just money currency. Yeah.
You. I love that. Like a different way of thinking about this question, and you've flipped it. You've been like, it's not about finance, it's not about funding. It's actually about how you can make use of the resources, and it really goes to show in the way that you talk about what you do and the way that you project yourself. And also, I meant to say is that I'm loving the aesthetic as well of like your background and everything. I just thought I'd point that out. It looks great. So thank you so much, David. The next question that I've got is for John and Roze. So it's a question to both of you here. Is I guess speaking maybe more in, well, you can see it in a global context, but also in a COV or a UK context in terms of applying for different funding schemes. Or I know that you've been commissioned or you're producing work. How do you go about doing that? Where do you start? Any advice for us? Any tips? So maybe we start with Roze and then go to John.
So that's a really interesting question. So off of that, the first advice I would give is, if you want to set up an organisation that would rely on funding, is to figure out what structure suits you best. So, you might think, oh, I'm just going to set up a company. But at the end of the day, there's like loads and loads of structures that you need to look into. Do you want a CIC? Do you want a CIO? Do you want a cooperative? How do you want it limited by guarantee, limited by shares, which sound like insane jargon right now, but if you research into it and figure out what's best, because you will find that, so I have a CIC, I have a community interest company, which means I'm allowed to have a trade aspect, but I also can have funding. That also does close a lot of funding pots that I can get. Many organisations want to just fund charities. They don't want to fund social enterprises. So I did that because I do want to set up a trade element, because working internationally, there's not a lot of funding for international creative projects. So I wanted to have a self-sustaining organisation. So that's my biggest advice. Figure out what structure suits you. Figure out what is best for your purpose, and go for that, and just really realize that there are pros and cons to everything. And then after that, it's really just applying for what pots suit you. I got rejected 8 times. I spent a year and a half before I got my first pot of funding. And when I say I got rejected 8 times, I don't mean I just got an email and got about in my life. I got an email and I'd spend an hour crying on the phone to my mum thinking, am I wasting my time here? Is what I'm doing, you know, does no one want to support this? You kind of feel like you're on your own at some point, and it hurts because I'm like, I want to build a career out of this. I want to do this. And it's so hard getting rejected. But as soon as I got my first part of funding, that was it. And when you will realise when you get your first part of funding, doors start opening. You'll get your second, you'll get your third. Within the space of 3 months, I got 2 pots of funding, and that's a year and a half of getting none. So that's what I would suggest. I don't know if John wants to add on to that.
Yeah, no, I agree with Rose. Depending on what you want to do, so if it's the business side of things, then yeah, definitely figure out what type of company that you want to run. On a creative aspect as well, I think for us, I mean, with BACE as a social enterprise, I mean, we were very blessed to have had schools wanting to jump on board and support us, council, socials, and other things as well. But I feel like that was due to the product. They were able to see the product. I think David touched upon it as well. I feel like as a creative, you can't really wait for anybody. You can't really wait for funding either. You have to figure out a way of creating your product and letting that product speak for you, right? And then Corey spoke about it earlier on as well. And let these organizations and let people come to you, because the way you have to see it is there are tons of people probably applying for the same funding. There are tons of people applying for that same organization. There are tons of people trying to do what you're doing. But what I always say to people is, how do you separate yourself from the tons of people? You can't reinvent the wheel, but you can paint it a different color. You know what I mean? So you have to think about it that way. And most of the time, I remember I was watching something, and it was a Hollywood director that said something really significant. He said, it's not the best of writers or the best directors that get the jobs. It's people that are able to market themselves a certain way to be seen, right? So most of the time, it's not about how good you are. It's about, can we see your product? Are you there? Like, you visible? You know, but that shouldn't take away from your art form and you getting to a certain level. Because there is a time where, again, it goes back to the point of, yeah, marketing can take you to a certain degree, but then when you're on that stage and that level, can you still sustain yourself on that level? So it goes hand in hand. So I would say, like David said, find ways and avenues to create what you want to create. If it's writing scripts, write the heck out of scripts. If it's music, do your music. Find a cheaper way, a cheaper alternative to create the sound that you want to create the sound that you want to produce, and then take it from there and then share it with people. If open mics, go to open mics. If it's CAFs, go to CAFs. If it's outside your university, go outside university. There's one lad I met in Birmingham, and he's always in Aussie music. He's always busking in Coventry, going around, you know what I mean? You know, and he's growing his TikTok to like almost 200K. Why is that? Because he's everywhere, you know, and it's just that duty of loving your craft to the point where it's all or nothing. So yeah, and money will always come from that as well. No words of a doubt. So.
I love that. What is it? You said you can't reinvent the wheel, but you can paint it a different color. I really like that. I thought that was really great. And it's about, again, going back to what you can bring into it all. And also the money's there as well. Like, the reason why these funding pots exist, the reason why people want to like make these projects happen is they've got money. You know, it might be hidden away a little bit, but if you're looking for it and you're talking to people, like everyone's saying, and you're applying for commissions, and I think Kamal talked about it, is like, you know, you can work commercially. You don't have to start and, you know, I only want to do this type of work and do it this way. You can start and explore different avenues as well. So the money's there, guys. Just look for it. Go find it. So thank you all for those sort of answers. And I think, before we sort of wrap up, I've got a final sort of question, and it's two-parted. So the first part of that is about your kind of purpose and what drives you and the issues that you face within that as well. So we know there's so many kind of structural inequalities, and how do they intersect with the purpose of what you do, what you want to do? So that's part one of my question. And then part two is just, what's one piece of advice that you'd leave everyone here with and everyone watching online with? So if we can start again with John, because you've just spoken, so we'll go with you, and then Rose, and then we'll head over to David and Kamal. So, John.
What was the first question?
First question, of course, is your purpose and what drives you, and then one piece of advice that you'd give and, leave us with.
Yeah, I think purpose is a funny thing. I think it was Prayer that talked about legacy, and I feel like that's a really significant thing about the type of legacy that you leave behind. I think one thing that really helped me to shape what I do today and to try to work as hard as I can is the aspect of legacy. As human beings, we're only here for a certain amount of time. We live in the context of time. Basically, we're restricted to how long we are here on this earth. And there was a saying on Gladiators, and he basically says, what you do on this earth will echo in eternity and beyond, simply. And what survives us as people is not so much, the money, the cars, the whatever it is, the bank account. Really, it's how we made people feel. Did we make people laugh? Did we make people joyful when we were around? How did they feel with us? How did to this day we listen to Tupac, we listen to Bob Marley and so forth, and all these people, they make us feel a certain way, and there's a reason behind that. And I feel like that's the beauty of purpose, is using our abilities and our gifts and our experiences. No one, first of all, in this world will ever have the same fingerprints as you. So the part behind that is, how are you going to touch the world? What mark are you going to leave behind? And then another thing is that really blew my mind is no one else has the same voice as you, right? So when you depart from this earth, literally that voice, that sound, it won't be here anymore. So there's such a significance behind your personal identity, that what you have to carry on in this world and give out. And whatever that gift that you have, that ability, that's purposeful. How do you use that? And it could be, for myself, it's youth work. I love youth work because of the life that I've grown up and being orphaned at a young age, and going through street life to being arrested multiple times. So I really sympathize with young people who are going through similar things. So I really feel it a different way. So with my work, I kind of tailor it towards that, because that's my ultimate purpose. I want to make sure that young person who's going through the same situations as me can figure out a path away from that to become what they are called to become. And I think that's the beauty of purpose in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I am going to pass over to Roze as well, to leave us with some final thoughts.
Right, some final thoughts. I think, again, like you said, purpose is a very general, very broad term. I think for me, what I love is connection. I think as humans, we are so much better when we're connected, when we're collaborative, rather than being kind of confined to our own little bubble. And I love it when someone turns to me and goes, "Oh, John Bernard is going to be on a panel with you. Oh, I don't know if you've heard of him." And I can say, "Do I know John? I used to work with him as a youth worker for about a year." I love that whole connection of being able to say, you know that person, you can work with them, and you have that bit of collaboration, which is why, again, Twin Studios, what I do is to kind of be that middleman between artists, creatives, sports people, all sorts, being that 1 degree away from someone from a different country that they've always dreamt of working with. So connection's a big one. And I think my little bit of advice I would give you, which sounds a bit cheesy and you've probably heard it 1,000,001 times, but I'm going to stress it, do not give up. Like I said, I was a year and a half, kept getting rejected for funding, and I was trying to repaint that wheel of twinning that just put this new perspective on this archaic idea. And I thought to myself, maybe no one else sees it, but now people are seeing it. Now I'm sat on a panel and telling you all about it. And yeah, really just, one day your idea will be seen. So just wait until that day, keep pulling through and use the resources you already have to build on that.
Thank you so much, Roze. And we're going to go over firstly to David, and then to Kamal. So David, final thoughts.
Thank you. First of all, I really love this panel so much because there's so many poets on this panel. So I kind of really connect on that level. I started off my creative journey as a poet. I'm still a poet. And the thoughts is that when you think about yourself, you have to think about from this perspective that why you're doing this is much bigger than yourself. When I think about this, I think about it from the perspective of my faith, me as a Christian, and why did God put me in this position? And I know that it's primarily because nations depend on it. My nation depends on it. My world depends on it. Everyone I come into contact depends on it. And, we think about how do you elevate everyone around you? Um, because right now it's so possible for, you know, people in Europe to work on productions and say, I want to fly in someone from Africa. And that's such doors that did not exist before this new era, right? It's like I have so many productions globally, and why would they not go in for people within their countries? Why would they not, take another person within Europe to work on a project in Europe? Why would you want to bring me from Ghana? And that is not something that existed for a very long time. So when I think about things from this perspective, I know that I have to make sure that I'm fully aware that my purpose is beyond myself. I'm fully aware that these doors have to be open for all the creatives within the country, within Africa, for the whole world to know that our work is equally as good, wherever we find ourselves. So I carry this huge responsibility on myself. And primarily, when I think about purpose, is what I think about to make sure that um, in doing my work, I'm representing what I stand for. I'm representing the entire continent. I'm representing the people who believe in my work, the people associated with me, or the people just like myself, So that really is what I think about when I think about purpose.
Thank you so much, David, leaving us with those um, concluding thoughts. And we'll go to Kamal finally and hear what he has to say.
Mm. I'll talk about curiosity. So, and I'll tell a little story of curiosity and work. I was working for an NGO, and I was sent to the northern part of the country, to a region called the Accra region, which is a beautiful area. It's green and all that. And today it is housing maybe 500,000 refugees, Syrian refugees that came. Lebanon is a tiny country. It's a 4.5 million population. And today we have 1.5 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon. And this phenomena created a bit of tension. And so I was sent by this NGO to tell stories and to try to establish some sort of contact, so within a journalistic framework. Obviously, people are not going to open up to you, and you need to establish, like Roze said, a connection. And the connection was not there. And so I found myself, with a dead end. Like, I have to come up with something, and nothing was coming up. And I started talking with women, because the men were reluctant to speak to a foreigner or to a Lebanese that, was coming with maybe a patronizing attitude. So there was a type of barrier. With the women, I started talking, and we started talking about dishes and cuisine, which might seem like a cliche, but through the door of ingredients, recipes, we were able to tackle the history, the origins, and we were able to go back and see some commonalities. And from there on, doors were opened, and a whole project was established thanks to that. So always keep a little open mind, curiosity, and I think that's it.
Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause, please? Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of you, our audience, for listening. And there were some really insightful thoughts, comments, motivations, and I've definitely left with a lot. So before we go on to break, I know we're a little bit overdue, so maybe a couple of minutes, but don't worry, won't be too long. We're going to go and head over to two amazing artists, creatives, and people that work within their community. So, as you all know, alongside the debate and the conversations that we've had today, this day is also about giving visibility to artists around the world. So we're actually going to be speaking to two young activists, and they use their creativity to create awareness of environmental issues and the climate crisis. So we're going to be joined by Jeffrey Poku and Nadia Awosu, from Accra, Ghana. So just to introduce them before they start, and they'll be showcasing some of their work just before we head off into the break. Jeffrey is a committed sustainable development advocate in Ghana, and he has a strong interest in climate adaptation. He's also the co-president of Sustainability Week Accra. It's a student-run organization where he leads climate and sustainability engagements. And he also has support from the Swiss Development Corporation in Accra. And he works closely with 25100 in developing climate youth funds to support grassroots projects as an ambassador for West Africa. So he's actually going to talk a little bit about his photography and some of the projects he's been doing. So if we've got Jeffrey, over to you. Hi, Jeffrey.
All right. Yay. Loud and clear.
Hello, yeah, we can hear you. Just over to you. Talk a little bit about some of your work, and also we're going to be showing some of your photography as well.
Okay, cool. So, basically, I identify myself as a sustainable development advocate. Growing up and completing high school, I just felt inclined to make a change in the environment, and I was really concerned about the environment with the growing plastic crisis in Ghana. So then I started with my plastic project where I educate young kids in Accra and also support them to segregate their waste. So the level of my interest in environmentalism grew deeper and deeper till I got into university, when I realized that university students also, were living unsustainable lifestyles. And this really struck me to change the narrative. So then also I started the Sustainability Week project, which was one of the creative projects I've ever done in the climate space, where we raise awareness through co-designing climate-friendly activities. So we have one activity, for example, like the clothes swap in Ghana, where this activity does not really relate to the Ghanaian cultural setting. So it was a bit difficult, and however, it's one creative way to address, the impending climate change in Ghana. So then from organizing sustainability weeks, raising awareness about climate change and promoting sustainable development actions, I realized there was opportunity around climate journalism. And I decided to take the lead in also using our lenses in photography to capture climate scenes, to raise awareness, invoke people to also make a change, because I believe that graphics do speaks volume, and the climate narrative actually requires us to use a multi-angle approach to tackle the situation. So then that actually inspired me to also explore climate journalism, where I see polluted areas, where I try as much as possible to take some pictures to raise awareness and also inspire all the young creatives to also, take charge of creating awareness about how we can address climate change through photography.
Thank you so much for that. That was really, really great. And I loved seeing your work as well. And again, you'll be able to catch everyone on their socials as well. So please do check them out. Next, we're going to go to Nadia. Again, she's going to briefly talk about her work. So Nadia is a communications consultant who works to amplify the work of youth groups focused on climate change, gender equality, and youth activism. And Nadia's going to talk about her work with McKenna Torch Africa, which focuses on recycling, upcycling, advocacy, and environmental sanitation. So over to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone from Accra, Ghana. I'm happy to see David Jeffrey from Accra also doing an amazing thing in the creative and environmental space. I'm happy David spoke extensively about his work right from the university, and Jeffrey's also doing something in sustainability. So I'm really proud of my country, Ghana, and how we are making impacts across the globe. My work at Macintosh Africa is very simple. Macintosh Africa realized there was a gap between environmental pollution and creativity. One thing we wanted to do was to use creativity to tell stories, to tell narratives, and to spur up engagement and change lifestyle in people. So one thing we started doing was to use creative stuff, materials, recycle bottles, recycle rubbers, recycle plastic to create sustainable materials. We started with our Christmas tree, which is made out of bottles. We started with bins, and receptacles where people are able to empty their bottles. We started with plastic footwears made from rubber. We started with the pillows. And with COVID-19 being a very global crisis, we realized most of our activities couldn't happen because of the lockdown. So the founder, Makafui Awuku, decided to build a prototype of a bus shelter. So that's like our bus shelter we launched in Accra, Ghana. We realized that the only way we can change people's mindsets is if we have prototypes, if we have figures, if we are able to show them tangible things to, change their lifestyle and also spur up change in them in able to fight climate crisis, because young people are really at the effect of climate crisis. So we built our bus shelter. It was a 12-month-long project. We started during the COVID-19 season, and the bus shelter is made from recycled and upcycled plastic waste gathered from the streets of Accra and bringing it back to Accra to, call for climate activism and also eradicate plastic pollution. Some of the things we used to build this bus shelter was flip-flops that were, retrieved from the beaches. We were able to use plastic waste bottle tops. We were able to use clay bricks, which we implemented. And for the sitting area, we were able to use plastic slabs, which look like wood. So you can see people are able to sit at the area. People are able to see how we are using plastic to fight climate crisis, to also call for youth activism when it comes to pollution. We're able to use 700 kilograms of recycled plastic waste. And for us, we think it's very huge, because if we're able to collect all of these plastic waste, in the few years to come, we'll be actually recycling more, upcycling more, and creating jobs. For our bus shelter, we are able to employ young Ghanaians, especially women, to work at our bus shelter to keep the space clean. They are getting sustainable income from that. And we are envisioning creating more. People will ask why we created a bus shelter from a creative installation as a bus shelter to change people's narrative, to change people's lifestyle. But we're not just doing this to say it's beautiful. We want people to come to the bus shelter. And when they come to the bus shelter, due to our 3D installations, they are able to see COVID-19 features. Stay safe, wear a nose mask, observe social distancing. We have all these installations on the bus shelter. It's also solar paneled. We work collaboratively with students at the University of Academic City. We also work with the Ghanaian Municipal Assembly to give us the space in the city to be able to create our installation right there. We're able to collect about 35 tons of plastic waste. If we're hoping in 5 years or in the years to come, if we're able to create 50 of these in the city, we're able to collect 35 tons of plastic waste. We're hoping to use that to create jobs for a lot of people, and 40% of the people who will be employed in these jobs will be women. So our goal is simple: to change people's narrative with our installation. We're hoping to spur up collaborations between the individuals like us, the creatives, and also partnerships between private and public entities. We know we can't do this alone. We need people's support. We need people's buy-in. And I love that the first panel talked about collaborations. Collaborations can be different forms, with your friends, with government, with anyone. So we are taking advantage of all of these things to change people's narratives in the environmental space. So at the end of the day, we're able to fight the climate crisis. So I'm really happy we're able to showcase our bus shelter. We launched it in February this year at the Fiesta Royal City in Accra. We are hoping to create more in Accra, in Kumasi, and take it across Africa. And hopefully, one of these days, you would see one in Coventry. No one knows. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nadia. And thank you to Jeffrey as well. And again, thank you to all of our panelists and all of you for waiting so patiently as well into your break. So we are going to go into a short break now until 5 o'clock. So feel free to, again, have discussions about what you've heard. There's questions, provocations, all on the desks as well inside. So please do write on them, talk to each other. Come and, I'm not going to say harass, but harass the panelists as well. Like, find out a little bit more about them and enjoy your break. Thank you all, and thank you all for watching as well virtually.